Ladies, gentlemen, we've got the second podcast today at Buyers Market. We've got Trent Falson on. Trent Falson is a buyer's agent, but probably more commonly known at the moment as a Bondi lifeguard, lifesaver, wherever you want to call it. Now, I have binge watched you a couple of years ago. I've been watching you for like 10 plus years on TV. So it's so crazy to just be sitting in front of you having a chat with you. It's actually fangirling a little bit hard. So,
well, it's a bit of a symbiosis because I've been fangirling you about the podcast. So since I've gotten into real estate, it's been my staple every night before I go to bed. So, mate, what a day!
This is awesome, mate. Let's kick things off where way back in Bondi. Like, when did you start at Bondi as a lifeguard? And how long have you been doing it? And what's the secondly, what's the craziest thing you've seen? Besides, obviously, maybe someone passing. But what's the craziest thing?
I think to answer the first one, I started, lifeguarding was actually my first job ever. When I went to school in the area and a few of the guys I went to school with, we all surfed in the area and grew up on the beach. And you know, growing up with the job to have when you're spending that much time at the beach is a lifeguard. It was like, they were back in the day, they were heavily esteemed guys, like, big burly sort of
the
cool dudes, and like we used to have our surfboards confiscated for surfing through the swimming flags sometimes, so we'd be terrified of them. And look, it was always one of those jobs everyone wanted to have. So when I finished school and I was still working out what I was going to do before I went to uni and all that kind of thing, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try out for the lifeguards. This would be really cool. So try it out, and a couple of us got on. And like I was just before I turned 18 actually. So yeah, I was young, and things were different back then. Like, we didn't have any of the equipment we've got now. Obviously no cameras, TV, none of those things, and most of the stuff we did was on foot. Now we've got like 2-3 vehicles on the beach, and sort of all of the two jet skis. We've got all the equipment, but back then it was like really sort of like old school lifeguarding. So it was rad. I really enjoyed it. And then sort of stayed pretty much with it until now. So it's like 20 something years that I've been on the beach on and off.
Are you still doing it?
Yes. Yeah.
So every
I've got a shift next Sunday.
No way.
It's hard at the moment because, as you know, real estate's really demanding, and we're really busy in this office at the moment. So, you're 6 days a week, almost 7 days a week, pretty much. Long days. Everyone out there that works in real estate knows the deal. But I think that I've always wanted to stay in touch with it because it's a family. And we're really close, all of us. It's like a bit of a brotherhood. We've all been together since we were young, and the job's just so fulfilling as well. And thirdly, the community engagement. Like, it's really good to just be in touch with the community, and
it makes me feel good. Business too.
Yeah, it does. It actually does. Funnily enough, when I was transitioning, I was like, these two jobs are so wildly apart. That there's going to be no sort of crossover here at all, and transferable skills, yes, maybe soft skills, communication, that kind of thing. But inevitably, as it's turned out, it's been really good. Like, I've sort of been able to sign on clients that I've known from lifeguarding down at the beach, and have a really good network because of the lifeguarding, and I think there's a sense of trust that a lot of people get from that.
Well, the other thing is, real estate agents, and maybe even people might see buyers agents in the second-hand car sales people space, right? But you're also coming from a place of you've got credibility as a good guy. You're saving lives.
Yeah, exactly.
You can trust
Hopefully,
you.
I've got some good karma
you got
stored
some
away
good trust and stuff, right? So coming back to my question, what's the craziest thing you've seen at the beach?
Yeah, look, we get asked that a lot, and there's so many stories. Like, you literally have to dig into the
craziest.
Probably, one of the most eye-opening things I've seen. Injuries. Well, I can put them into two categories. There's injuries where a man had his penis degloved by a dog.
What?
What? Yeah,
no way. I wasn't expecting that.
He was holding the tennis ball, throwing the tennis ball to the dog in the water out at, where Ben Buckler is, out where the rocks are, off the rocks, throwing the tennis ball to the dog, and the guy was holding the tennis ball in front of his, old mate, and the dog jumped up and went to bite the tennis ball and got him on the end of and it ripped all of the even. I won't go into detail, but when the ambos arrived, they looked at it and went, "Oh," and turned their head away. So, I mean, that's not your beach injury. That's not your common beach injury.
What?
Yeah.
I was expecting like something in the water.
Nah, this guy was like, nah, this is the strangest stuff we see is not in the water. So that was a bad injury that I've seen. As far as like crazy stuff, there was one day I was working down at Bondi and this guy was allegedly touching people in the surf. From time to time you get people sort of swimming through the waves and then pretending to bump into.
TV?
Yeah.
I remember that one.
And he's swimming around touching girls and whatnot in the water and anyway the police were called and the police came down and we sort of identified the sort of gentleman and he was walking up the sand at that stage, so the police went down to approach him on the sand and he ran into the water. Now I didn't know this, but the police can't go into the water at all, like they can't even get their boots wet, so they had to stand on the shoreline while he swam out through the break. And so he just swam along the beach and all they could do was kind of walk along the sand following him. And so the next thing we had all these superintendents and commanders down there and they're saying to us, well, what are you going to do? Can you go and get him on the jet ski? And we're like, well, we can't get him on the jet ski. We've got no powers of arrest. Like, what are we going to do? Just kind of, what if he fights back, So this next thing, a police helicopter came and there was a bit of a spectacle and this guy's literally holding everyone at ransom in the water. And then finally the water police came and they couldn't come in through the surf because with the boat. So we had to literally go and pick up one of the water police guys on the back of our jet ski, bring him into where the guy was on, in the surf. And by that time he sort of was near the rock at South Bondi. He tackled the guy in the water and dragged him up the rocks and then onto the beach. So, I mean, I was astounded because, I mean, if you're ever going to rob a bank, just go into the water. Just go into the surf. Wow. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was literally watching this guy just swim up and down the beach and the police not being able to sort of get to him. It was bizarre. So things like that.
Crazy stuff, man.
I saw a guy, sort of lose control of his car and come down the hill at South Bondi and clear the promenade and then out about 200 metres onto the sand. And that was a wet day. There was no one on the beach. The day before was like 40 degrees and there would have been 30,000 people on the beach. So he would have the day before killed probably, who knows how many people. Yeah. Things like that, it's just
That's
crazy.
craziness, man. So this is like a walk in the park, huh?
Yeah, it is. Well, I don't know. This has been challenging in itself. Different challenges. Like,
well, let's talk about it. What's the transition been like? So, when did you start to transition to being a buyer's agent? And what have been the biggest challenges from going from being a lifeguard to being a buyer's agent?
Yeah. Well, just to give you a little bit of a backstory, I mean, how I came into, this sphere of buyer's agent work is that I'd grown up in the area as a property investor. I was sort of buying and selling property, since my 20s and early 20s and sort of was really enjoying the, owning, holding property, selling and then buying. And so I bought and sold various properties around the eastern suburbs throughout my life and had a really good knowledge of the local market and that kind of thing, and always had a fascination with property. And a couple of times I'd gone for a sales role and then sort of pulled out at the last minute and thought, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. I don't know if I'm sort of salesy enough, that kind of thing, and doubted myself, I guess. And then sort of along the way, that kept going. And then literally I bumped into Matt Spooner on a job. We were working together. I was a lifeguard. He was a volunteer with Surf Life Saving as a duty officer. And, we'd met on the job. And literally that was before he'd started as a buyer's agent. And then I bumped into him at the pub sort of not long after, and he said, I've just started a buyer's agency business. Wow. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, eh? Like, what a cool job. Like, how did you do that? Anyway, so we kept in contact as mates and things. And then I worked in various sales roles across the course of my career with lifeguarding in the background. Yeah. And literally, I'd gone for a role with in spinal devices sales, in medical sales. And like, I was having this moment of like, do I really want to do this? Do I not want to do this? I don't know. And I was about to pull the trigger and I was like, going to call Matt Spooner and just have a chat to him about this buyer's agent thing. I think the time's right. Like, so I literally called him and I said, mate, do you mind if we just have a coffee? I just want to find out a little bit more, you know, and it wasn't so much like I was asking for a job. I just wanted to find out about how buyer's agents work, what kind of training you need and that kind of thing, because it really appealed to me. So we had a coffee and he was like, mate, I think you'd be pretty good. Like, you've got a good network, you know, you speak well, you got the hair. You got the hair, right? The Eastern Suburbs hairdo, like, what could go wrong?
It was perfect.
Yeah. So we had a coffee and he said, mate, look, would you be interested in coming on one day a week for a trial for a few months? And I was like, yeah, 100%. So literally from the first day we went out on the road, I was like, this is unreal. Like, walking through some of the most amazing, but not only the top end property, but some of the units around the area and that kind of thing. I was like, who gets to do this?
You're not just stuck in a desk all day.
Yeah, we were out on the road. Yeah. We were going through properties, speaking to agents, and it was just like I was like, this is unreal.
Thing every day.
Yeah, exactly. And then sort of just grew to love it more and more. And the more I learned, I was like, yeah, this is for me.
I guess it's a bit like Bondi, right?
Yeah.
Like it's different every single day.
Exactly.
It's not like you're an accountant coming in doing the same shit every single day in, day out.
Nah.
It's just fucking...
I always say, like, no 2 days are ever the same in this role. It's so wildly different that when you get dressed for work in the morning, you don't know what's going to happen that day. Like, you can sort of get a really good sort of referral, a lead. You can lose one. Deals come on and then deals fall over. It's literally like minute by minute sort of stuff, and I love that because it's just like the weeks here go like this. They go so fast, So I couldn't be happier, and I think I've found the right, when you found the right, sort of jam for yourself.
Yeah, you do. Tell us, what's been your most memorable deal so far?
Yeah, I think, I've sort of got to say, your most memorable deal is nearly always your first one.
Yeah.
I got an opportunity to work with a mate of mine who also was one of the lifeguards at Bondi, a young guy, much younger than me. He was buying his first property. So he was buying a 2-bedroom unit in Bondi, and came to me and said, do you reckon you can help me? And I said, absolutely. Like, this is what we do, So we had a chat with him and was able to sign him on, and then literally working with him for sort of like, I think it was just shy of sort of like 8 weeks, 6 weeks. We showed him quite a bit of property so he could get a good grasp of what's out there, what he could buy with his money, and literally bought him a little gem in Bondi, and like he was just over the moon. It was his first purchase. His mum was just it was a family thing. They all came in and they were all, and it was just unreal. I remember making him that phone call to him and saying, mate, congratulations, you're now a property owner, and like that to me is why we do the job. I mean, the money's great, and no one's going to deny that, but I think that sense of satisfaction when you get to help people like that, it's literally like living his dream,
Yeah.
So that's going to be my most memorable deal always, I think, that first one, and yeah.
It seems like you care a lot about people.
I do. I think
a lot.
I think that's at the backbone of my values and that kind of thing, and of course there's a bit of commercial interest, but like I think mainly what drives me is people, and that's been centric for me since I was young, and working with the lifeguards, you become very much people focused, people centric, caring. So I think Matt, my boss, will probably tell you, we have different personalities in this office, but much more my jam is the nurturing role, the softer kind of, I kind of gel with the clients that are a little bit softer, and I can show empathy, those sort of softer skills, whereas some of the agents are a little bit more, like boom transactions. Like I'm much more sort of like, so I think that works well, and I think what I've noticed in the industry is that you find your clients, you find your tribe, then they find you.
They do. I've seen with real estate agents, I've said like there's multiple different personalities in our office. And they're all writing over $1 million.
That's right.
But they all do things completely different. But they find their own tribe.
There's no right or wrong, and like I find this with referral partners in real estate agents as well. You just click with some agents, and you just click with some people, and you just gel, and I think that's why it's such an interesting job too, because no one, there's no one size fits all. I think it's just it's all about people. So.
Do you think you've been able to progress as quick as you have is because of the reason you were investing prior?
I think so. I think that definitely helps. Like I struggled when I came into this with some really bad imposter syndrome. I think that coming into real estate can be a really intimidating business to come into.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that some of the agents, particularly around, this area have been in it 20, 30 years and they're really ingrained in the area. And I think one of the biggest struggles for me is that I felt like, well, who's this guy that's just stepped in here off the beach? He's been on TV or whatever, but does he think he's going to sort of be able to shake it up in the real estate industry? And that literally was the voice pinging around my head every day. And that same voice that gave me anxiety and scared the shit out of me actually drove me as well, because I was like, I'm not going to fail at this. I don't want to fail at this. I want to prove to people and that, I can make the transition and I can be, successful in real estate and more than anything, just be, sort of see it through and stick it through. I think, that first 12 months is really hard, the attrition rate and the burnout rate and the, so I think for me, that really drove me. It was like, what are people saying out there? You've come from the beach, and that sort of that was really powerful for me. I really struggled with imposter syndrome.
Yeah. We just spoke to Matt about that too.
Did you? Yeah.
Just spoke about that too.
Yeah, it's a big one. It can either make you or break you, I think,
How have you overcome it? How did you overcome that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that I was very wary of it, and I was like, I know what this is. I know, and every day I'd come to work or I'd go to an open home, I'd be nervous. I'd be I feel like this kind of imposter, whatever. And I think what I had to do, and this has virtually been my mantra every day, and it served me so well, is go there and be 1% better. Go there and be 1% better every day. Improve, stack days, just do the thing, you know what I mean? And stick to the process. And this is the best thing that I can sort of pass to anyone else is if you stick to the process, the outcome will look after itself. And so I had to wipe out and sort of put the blinkers on and get rid of the white noise and the background noise in my head and all of those doubts and that kind of thing.
Who taught you that?
Matt was the one that said to me, stick to the process and the outcome will take care of itself. But I think the 1%er thing and stacking days, I read so many development books, and that kind of thing. And there's a really good book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. And it's about sort of taking on that beginner's mindset and being able to overcome the challenges.
So can you say that one more time?
Mindset by Carol Dweck.
By Carol Dweck.
Brilliant book. It's about how your attitude obviously governs your results and, being able to, they did studies on kids when they were young and the kids that believed they could, they put a challenge in front of these kids and, difficult puzzles and challenges, and the kids that believed that they could do it, that had the, the right mindset, nearly always did. You know what I mean? And then the kids that sort of had doubt and those sorts of things, the personality types where they were a little bit more type A and a little bit more sort of less believing themselves, generally always failed the task. So, it's a really good book for me about okay, if you think you can, you can. And get out of your own head and just get your hands dirty, So I think for me that was massive,
Yeah, so what I'm picking up is two things. One is you need to surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
You've joined an office with an absolute killer.
Yeah.
That's obviously mentoring you the right way.
Yeah, massive.
I've seen a lot of agents come and go out of the industry, and I really thought these people would have been really good either buyers agents or selling agents, but they're just under the wrong guy or wrong girl.
Yeah.
And that just ruins their career. Secondly, is personal development. That's a big thing for you.
Yeah.
How do you structure your personal development? Because what I'll do is I'll chuck on an audiobook for an hour, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
What do you do?
So I'm a mad podcast nut. So listen to yours nearly every day. But, I'll listen to so many podcasts a week, and they're generally all either personal development, interviewing sort of high performers, athletes, that kind of thing. And they're sort of the bulk of what goes around in my head. And then obviously books as well. I have this bad habit of going to bookstores and buying a lot of books and then not having the time to read them, or so I've still got quite a stack of books at home that I'm going to get around to reading one day.
The same thing.
But they're there, you know what I mean? And like when I look at them every day, I'm like, yeah, that's motivating me. Like, you know, that. So yeah, I always have been really big on like personal development and reading to be better.
Forever?
I just want to be better.
Forever, like past
I
20 years, 30 years, or
when I was young, I used to compete in surf life saving.
Yep.
And I remember I was coming up to an Australian title one year, and I was performing really well, and things were moving along, and I was tipped to sort of do well at that Australian titles. I remember going to the library in year 12, and instead of studying, you know, my HSC or year 12 work, I had books on sports psychology so that I could, like, you know, tweak my mind to sort of like have an advantage over my competitors. So it started early, you know what I mean? And like, yeah, I was able to win that Australian title. It was great. But I still believe that because I practiced the psychology element of it, I was able to, you know, because it was all about practicing the race in your head before you race it, and, you know, visualizing it and feeling it and smelling it and all that kind of thing, and
manifesting it.
Yeah, literally the race that day went that way almost, you know, to plan.
How much do you believe that can make or break a person with their mindset? I'm working with a friend right now where I'm pushing him down this personal development route with books and what have you. Do you think you can become a high performance or highly successful person if you're not doing personal development, audiobooks, feeding your mind, that sort of stuff? Do you think it's possible?
I think it is. I think you have to be, there's different personality types out there, right? Like there are workers that just slug away and put like, you know, the 16, 18 hour days in, and like they just, you know, they do the simple things well, you know, that no one wants to do, like, you know, making all, you know, 100 calls a day, that kind of thing. And they just hammer away at it. Obviously that's going to yield results. And those people necessarily might not be interested in doing the personal development work. But the other side of the coin is the people that want to do the personal development work. I think, you know, there is huge scope because, you know, your mind is the most incredible tool, and they say we only use what percent of it? I can't remember.
Really low.
Let's call it a small number. But you know, and I think that so much of what we do in life is mental, and I think that if you can tune this incredible machine and get it working for you as opposed to against you, you can do incredible things. And you read about it all the time, like, you know, people doing incredible physical feats, feats in business. You know, like it's wild. So for me, that really works really well, and I think. You know, I think in real estate, it's such a grueling industry. You know, they're long days, long weeks. I think you really need to have your mindset in check so that you can get the best out of yourself. And what I've seen with some people, and particularly buyer's agents, is not always the person that's working the hardest, but sometimes the person that's working the smartest. You know, so
what does working the smartest look like from your perspective in our industry?
Yeah, I think you know, there's a perception that you've got to like put, you know, sort of the big long-ended weeks in, and you've got to be in the office, you know, sort of from, you know, sort of 6 a.m. till, you know, 8 p.m, 9 p.m. And don't get me wrong, like that works like largely, but I think now we're hearing about like a newer sort of a newer wave of thinking that is like, you need to look after your well-being as well. You know, you need to look after your mind. You need to have that sort of, you know, flick the switch off every now and again and just reboot, you know. And so I think that to me is working smarter, not harder. But like, I think well-being has to come first, because without your health, and particularly your mental health, I think you're just, you know, you've got a limited supply or a limited output.
100% agree. 100%.
I think it's really powerful, and I think we're seeing a bit of that now. Like, I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and you know, I'm hearing a theme of, you know, this trend towards putting your health and your mental well-being, your physical well-being first.
For sure.
You know, I know a lot of agents around here that are good mates of mine that surf during the day because they have to. You know, because it just keeps them, you know, keeps them fresh, keeps them sharp. If they don't, you know. But I understand there's a lot of agents that, you know, they you know, see like that might be lost time as well. So whatever works for the agent is what works for you, and there's no right or wrong way for anyone.
What do you think When you're going through properties and you're dealing with these selling agents, what do you think they do wrong the most? Or what do you think they could improve on the most when they're at open homes or dealing with buyers agents?
I think it's interesting because you see some agents are less buyer focused, and I think there's now a trend towards using, sales agents using your buyers as, your main or one of your main sort of resources as well. So I think probably, used to see sales agents just looking after the seller, and obviously that's their main, task. But I'm seeing agents now starting to be a little bit more buyer centric as well, and I think that's a really good sort of headspace to be in.
For sure.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I think it's more the Bresic Whitney model where they're trying to focus more on the buyers and actually servicing the buyers. For sure, 100% agree with that. Yeah,
and I think that's increasingly being a shift that's, I think if you've got the whole game covered, then I've heard Rick Soraya, I've heard, many agents say it.
Now, we asked the same question to Matt. You might have a different answer to him, but you are working with the elite of the elite in terms of agents in the country. Let's say you pick the top 3 performers that you work with. What's the common denominator, the most common denominator between all 3 of them?
Well, you'd have to say work ethic first. There's, there isn't one there that's not doing the work. I think probably being able to be a chameleon with their clients, being able to switch gears between who they're dealing with, who their clients are, and being able to mold themselves to that client rather than just being a sort of a one-trick pony. I see the good agents doing that a lot, and I think there's just probably the third thing would just be like having a whole game, like not just like getting in there listing aggressively and just kind of like churning deal after deal. Like they're across everything. Like I just mentioned earlier about being more buyer centric as well. Like I think the good agents have their eyes open. They've got their periphery vision working really well for them. They're sort of got an open mind rather than just that sort of old school closed mind thing, sort of like the car salesman thing where it's like, I'm just here to do a deal. I'm just here to do a deal. I see agents these days really like open-minded, and they're looking at everything going on around them. They're constantly evaluating and changing their pitch or their strategies and things like that. And I think adaptation and being adaptable to your environment is key. I think that's probably the most important one. And I see these top guys doing it. They're reading the play every day, you know what I mean? And they're just moving with it.
Yeah. Now, obviously you're newer into the industry.
Yeah.
What are your goals over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself going?
I think the main goal for me, because I'm an associate under Matt at the moment, and it's phenomenal. We've got such a high performing team here. It's incredible. We've just expanded. It feels like overnight, and I'm fortunate to have come on in the beginning of all of that. So I feel like one of the OGs. Yeah. And that old saying, like the high tide rises all boats, and that's what it feels like, So I'm having an incredible time working under Matt, and doing my own deals as well. I've been really fortunate this year to sort of had a really good start to the year and get like quite a few of my own deals away this year, and getting my own autonomy and working for myself almost under Matt, which is great, So I'm getting that sort of like. But I think for me, getting, moving out on my own probably in the next sort of, 2 to 3 years, and then standalone agent, and then just very much beach focused. I think you've got to kind of...
You want to be Bondi. Well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? How can it not?
I was listening to, something the other day about like, whether you dominate your own, sort of little patch on a, sort of micro or macro scale, or you try and be across, everything and many suburbs. And there's that whole like, do you try and, double down on a small area and just, try and, really master that market, or do you expand and try and make your catchment bigger? So, for me, I think, really trying to sort of take advantage of, this local market here in Bondi to Bronte, I want to say, and Coogee, the beaches. For me, that's sort of my goal, standalone agent, and really sort of like catch fire there.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
What's your best couple of learnings or teachings that you've gotten from Matt?
Yeah. The first and foremost, and like I still use this every day, it's stuck on a post-it note near my computer, is, stick to the process and the outcome will take care of itself. I got lost a little bit at the end of last year, and I think I was pushing too hard, and I was I'd become too results focused, and I was just getting frustrated, and I felt like, what's going wrong here? A couple of deals fell over and this and that, and I was just angry. I was kind of getting a bit angry and frustrated with it, and Matt sat me down. He goes, mate, you just need to focus on the process.
Yeah.
If you focus on the process and you do the things every day, like your sourcing calls, booking your new client meetings, all of those things, have yourself your ideal week in your diary, all those things, the outcomes will come. And literally, it was, it's kind of magic how it happened. As soon as I started doing that and got my mindset into just process, I started picking up again and started doing deals again and that kind of thing. So it's
the momentum.
Yeah. And the other thing is be yourself. I think, it's an industry where, you see a lot of people in suits and ties and things like that, and
they're all rigid.
Yeah. And I think people, obviously people buy from people, and people will gravitate towards you if you can, sort of be yourself and be authentic. Genuine, right? 100%. So I think that's a big learning that I'm learning as I'm getting more mature and moving along the path here. I think I'm starting to become more confident with just owning my own identity and not trying to blend in and that kind of thing. I ride around on a Vespa, that kind of thing. It's great. You know what I mean? Like zipping around on the beaches on a Vespa.
In the park.
I know. Yeah, me and Rick Soraya have little kind of
Oh yeah, Rick Soraya.
He's got one as well. We nod the helmet at each other and stuff,
who wants to be driving around trying to find a car park for 3 hours?
It's a couple of things, it's like cost of petrol, it's like parking on Saturday opens is a nightmare. So, So, but they're the main things, I think.
That's a really big take home. I think everyone really needs to take that home. I think in real estate, to all the listeners, everyone is so egotistical and they see everyone, they see the Instagram, they see all the cool stuff,
bells and whistles,
but at the end of the day they're trying to be that person, but they're not that person. You're not that person.
No, I'm not.
Just be your own self.
Exactly.
You see Matt came in and he was just loose, just loose, having fun, whatever.
That's what I love about him.
But I think that's, and it's the same as you. You've come in and you've just sat down and you're just yourself. And I think that's why you guys do so well. And
we work well together, and the team as well. I think Matt's a good leader in the way that he is pretty loose. And he does have fun, and we do laugh a lot in the office here, and we do kind of awesome. But when we work really hard, and that just goes without saying. But I think the fact that he gives us license to be ourselves. We've got, one of my other colleagues is 100 miles an hour, just head down, bum up all day, and focus, laser focus, blinkers on, Matt, myself are a little bit different to that, and there are other agents here that are a little bit more, everyone's got their own way of doing things and their own personality style. And I think what he's done here in building this office is building an office of different personalities so that we can service a broad range of clientele. So we can be softer, sort of older lady or an older couple, whatever, or, new buyers, whatever. This person goes to that person. High end, sort of 19, 20 mil purchase, blah, blah, blah. CEO of this company or that company goes to that, sort of buyer's agent. So we can mix and match, to our clients. And I think that's
smart.
Real power when
That's smart.
you can, good firepower when you can match to, whereas you just don't have the same agents all looking the same and talking the same.
Correct.
So.
No, I love that.
But yeah, I mean, look, I'm 46 now, and I changed careers when I was 44, and I think it's really important to get the message out there too to people that like you're never too old to start something new. And what I did was terrifying, terrifying. And one of the nicest things I've ever heard, I've got two boys, 19 and 16, and one of the nicest things I've ever heard from one of my sons was that he said to my mum, I'm really proud of Dad for changing careers and taking on such a massive challenge.
Wow.
When seemingly the Bondi Rescue thing's all great and it's all comfortable and things are great there, but I wasn't I was like, I want to take on more, and I want to challenge myself again, and I want to sort of never stop, never get comfortable, just keep challenging yourself. And I think the rewards are tenfold, and so I think a message to people out there would be, if you're thinking about changing careers, do it. You're never too old. You've got sort of many days ahead of you, and you can always learn. You can always, as long as you've got the right mindset, like we said with that book, you can just apply yourself to anything and have a good crack at it. But yeah,
unreal.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit of a perfectionist too, so that's been hard to overcome. But
your advice is bang on.
Yeah.
You're good, man.
Yeah, well, it's been fun. It's been not without its,
challenges.
One of my mates who works down at Bondi in an office down there said to me, real estate is the highest of highs and lowest of lows.
And you've seen both.
And he's right. Yeah, he's absolutely bang on
probably
right.
seen it 10 times.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
In one day as well.
Exactly, in 1 hour. So but the highs are bloody amazing, and. Especially, sort of like in this office, the buyer's side is unreal. Like our clients are just, wrapped with a lot of the work we do. And getting deals is just euphoric.
All right. My last question for you. What would be your best piece of advice for someone that has just started out as a buyer's agent that isn't 19 or 20?
Yep.
And has expenses to pay, has other commitments that they have to do, kids, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
What's your best piece of advice for them?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, I think for me, that was one of the main struggles I had. I got kids and things, and I cut back, sort of working, lifeguarding, and I threw everything into this basket. And I'm on, I've got a base, so that was fortunate. But it's, everyone knows, the base when you add on your comms, that's when it starts to become good. So, there are numerous moments in the, sort of when I first started, I was like, I don't think I can do this. I think I'm redlining, with finances and this and that. But I had to just kind of sort of find other ways. I had a little bit of social media presence, right? So I could just do a few social media jobs and this and that and just get some money coming in that way. There are a few other little water safety jobs that I could do on the side that I could, and I mean, look, I want to say try and find a side hustle to everyone, but not everyone has that ability. But I think, if you can, some people have to work second jobs, whatever it is, Uber's, great apparently. Yeah. I mean, but I've inevitably seen people, once you break through that first rut of low earnings and you start to earn money and, and I've seen it with myself, then you start to get a roll on and momentum, and then you think, well, I'm glad I stuck at it. Yeah. So I think the advice would be just find a way to get through that first, sort of period, and then, you'll be rolling.
Great advice.
You've just got to, like we said, find whatever it is, Uber on your Sundays, whatever it is, but if you just, most people quit just before they always say, what do they say? The darkest time of day is just before the dawn or something like that. Yeah, it's always darkest just before dawn. Yeah.
That's true.
But, a lot of people quit just before they have a breakthrough. So, I think if you can just persist.
Great.
That's awesome, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, fellas.
Mate, that was killer.
That was good. I really enjoyed it.